It is a warm Tuesday afternoon in the Coachella Valley. The desert sun is hammering down on the purple courts of the Indian Wells Tennis Garden. A match is about to begin. And somewhere outside the stadium, stretching so far back you cannot even see the end of the line, thousands of people are waiting. They are wearing blue, red and white. They are holding flags. They are chanting in Filipino. They have driven hours from Los Angeles, from San Francisco, from San Diego, from every city along the California coast where their community has built its home. They are not here for Aryna Sabalenka. They are not here for Iga Swiatek. They are not here for Coco Gauff or Elena Rybakina or any of the decorated champions who spent years climbing to the top of the sport. They are here for a 20-year-old left-hander from the Philippines who has just done something that nobody in the history of her nation has ever done before. And they are not going to let a single person in that stadium forget it for even 1 second. Welcome to Indian Wells 2026. Welcome to the moment that professional tennis has been building toward, whether it knew it or not. Welcome to the Alexandra Eala era, now officially open for business in the heart of the California desert. Here is the thing that makes this entire story hit differently from every other feel-good tennis narrative you have heard before. This is not a story about a young player overcoming the odds to earn a wild card and hoping to make a splash. That was last year's chapter. This is a completely different book. When Alexandra Eala arrives in Palm Springs for the BNP Paribas Open, she is arriving as a seeded player, number 31 in the world, officially among the elite. For the first time in her young career, the Filipino tennis standout enters a WTA 1000 tournament as a seeded player, a distinction that grants her a first-round bye and a direct place in the round of 64 at the Indian Wells Tennis Garden in California. TennisUpToDate.com WTA. She's like an absolute rock star. Alexandra Eala, the biggest draw in women's tennis right now. Query Isner and Johnson debate. Impact of rising Filipino. Read that back one more time and let it land. A first-round bye, direct entry into the round of 64. No opening round match where she has to burn energy and nerves just to get to the real tournament. She walks in already, through the first gate, already guaranteed a match against someone who had to earn their way through the qualifying gauntlet just to face her. That is not the story of a wild card hoping for a miracle. That is the story of a champion in the making who has already done the work to earn her seat at the table. And the table she is sitting down at is genuinely staggering in terms of who else is in the room. The seedings for Indian Wells 2026 read like the greatest hits of women's tennis, with Aryna Sabalenka at 1, Iga Swiatek at 2, Elena Rybakina at 3, Coco Gauff at 4, Jessica Pegula at 5, Amanda Anisimova at 6, Jasmine Palolini at 7, and defending champion Mira Andreeva at 8. Tennishead.net, Alex Eala already hailed as a bigger draw than Coco Gauff and Aryna Sabalenka for women's tennis. These are multiple Grand Slam champions. These are the women who have defined the WTA Tour for the past several years. And sitting right there at number 31 in that same seedings list, the only Filipina in the draw, the only player from Southeast Asia with a direct seeded entry, is Alexandra Eala. She belongs in that list. Her ranking says so. Her results say so. And when you talk to the people who know professional tennis best, they will tell you something even more remarkable. They will tell you that in terms of the attention she commands, the atmosphere she creates, and the cultural footprint she leaves on every tournament she enters, Eala does not belong at number 31. She belongs right at the very top of that conversation. Let us trace exactly how she got here, because the speed of it is genuinely breathtaking if you lay it out in sequence. In 5 years, Eala has climbed from outside the top 700 to the brink of the elite, and in 2026 she is seeded at a WTA 1000 event for the first time at Indian Wells. Wikipedia outside the top 700 to seeded at the 5th Grand Slam in half a decade. That climb required talent, obviously, but it required something else too. It required the kind of mental toughness that you cannot teach and cannot manufacture, the kind that gets tested when you are expected to be the representative of an entire nation every single time you step on a court, the kind that gets tested when millions of people back home in Manila are watching your match live at 3 o'clock in the morning and the weight of their hopes is sitting on every single shot you hit. Alexandra Eala has been carrying that weight for years now, and instead of buckling under it, she has used it as rocket fuel. A flashpoint that changed everything happened in Miami just 12 months ago. Before that tournament, Eala was ranked around 140th in the world. She needed a wild card just to get into the draw. Nobody in the mainstream tennis media was writing features about her or running predictions about her results. And then she started playing, and she beat Jelena Ostapenko, and then she beat Madison Keys, and then she beat Iga Swiatek, the reigning world number 1, in one of the most dramatic upsets the Miami Open had seen in years. 3 Grand Slam champions, dispatched on 3 consecutive days by a wildcard player who was not supposed to be anywhere near the later stages of the draw. And surrounding every single one of those matches was a crowd unlike anything that tournament had witnessed in recent memory. Thousands of Filipino fans who had arrived from across Florida and beyond, who had packed themselves into every available space in those stadiums, who had turned what was supposed to be a neutral tennis venue into something that felt more like a home crowd situation for a player who technically had no home advantage at all. That was the moment the world woke up to what the Eala effect actually looks and sounds and feels like. And Indian Wells is about to find out what happens when you multiply that energy by a factor of 10. Because here is what Miami did not have that Indian Wells has in abundance. California. Filipino communities abroad turn Eala's matches into cultural gatherings, while fans back home drive massive digital engagement across platforms. Clips of her matches routinely outperform those of higher-ranked players, creating a feedback loop of visibility that the sport rarely sees. And nowhere in the United States is the Filipino community larger, more organized, more deeply rooted, or more ready to mobilize than right here on the California coast. Cities like Daly City, which has one of the highest concentrations of Filipino Americans of any city in the country, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Jose, Vallejo, Carson, these are not just places where Filipino families happen to settle. These are communities with decades of history, with established organizations, with networks of communication, with a deep sense of collective identity and pride that kicks into an entirely different gear when something like Alexandra Eala happens. And right now, every single one of those communities is pointed in the same direction. They are pointed toward the California desert. They are packing their cars and booking their accommodations and ironing their Philippine flags and preparing to make the drive to Palm Springs and announce themselves to the entire tennis world in the loudest possible terms. The financial reality of this mobilization is something that has the tournament's commercial team looking at their numbers with a combination of glee and mild bewilderment. Secondary market ticket prices for sessions in which Eala is expected to feature have already started climbing well above their face value, with some seats reportedly changing hands for double what they originally sold for. Hospitality bookings, merchandise requests, food vendor preparations. Every single commercial sector of this tournament is experiencing a surge in activity that correlates directly with the presence of one player in the draw. In women's tennis, stardom has traditionally followed trophies, rankings, and Grand Slam tallies. Alexandra Eala is breaking that order. Wikipedia Wiki Alexandra Eala, she is generating commercial energy that the sport's biggest titles have not produced for the current top-ranked players, and she is doing it not because of a marketing campaign or a brand strategy, but purely through the authentic, unstoppable force of a community that sees itself in her and responds accordingly every single time she plays. The strategic picture heading into the tournament is equally fascinating for anyone who follows the sport closely. Eala essentially has a free hit at Indian Wells, where she is not defending any ranking points at the Masters event. That means a few more wins could consolidate her place inside the top 30 of the rankings for the first time in her career. Tennis Temple, TAPF, htttu/is-alexandra-eala-more-popular-then-saba/tiy. Think about what that means in practical terms. Every player in this draw who has been here before is walking in with points to defend. Every deep run they had last year is a target they have to match or surpass just to maintain their current ranking. Eala has no such burden. She is playing with pure upside. Every round she wins is a gift, a deposit of fresh points into a ranking account that currently has nothing against it in this particular tournament column. Win 2 matches and she banks points. Win 4 and she potentially cracks the top 25. Win the whole thing and she rewrites the record books for Southeast Asian tennis in a way that would echo through the sport for decades. The pressure is real because she is now a seeded player and expectations have shifted, but the mathematical opportunity is genuinely extraordinary. Eala is seeded at Indian Wells, which boosts her chances because she can now not play another seed until the 3rd round at the earliest. Fastbreak.com.ph Alex Eala bigger than Sabalenka Gauff Egazi ATP stars say yes sports galore. That structural advantage matters enormously at a tournament of this size and depth. In the first 2 rounds, she will face players who came through qualifying or who are ranked outside the top 32 in the world. That is the tier of players she has been beating consistently throughout her career. It is not until the 3rd round that the draw opens up and the possibility of a Sabalenka or a Swiatek or a Rybakina enters the picture. By which point, if Eala has navigated her way through to that stage, she will be locked in and focused and riding the kind of momentum that a packed stadium full of Filipino fans screaming every point can generate in a player who feeds off that energy rather than wilting under it. And speaking of preparation, the images coming out of Oregon over the past couple of days have added an entirely new dimension to the pre-tournament narrative. The 5'9" lefty is currently on vacation in Oregon, where she visited the Nike World headquarters, which displayed portraits of some of her career highlights. The photographs that emerged from that visit have lit up social media in a way that pure tennis news rarely does. There she was, walking through the iconic Nike tunnel, surrounded by portraits celebrating the defining moments of her young career, her face displayed on the walls of the world's most powerful sports brand headquarters, alongside the images of athletes who have shaped the entire history of sport. For Filipino fans across California and around the world, seeing those images was not just exciting, it was validating. It was the world's biggest commercial institution saying in the clearest possible visual language that Alexandra Eala belongs among the greats and that her story is worth celebrating at the highest possible level. The Nike connection runs deeper than a casual sponsorship arrangement. This is a brand that has spent decades investing in athletes who it believes will reshape the cultural landscape of their sport. The athletes Nike chooses to celebrate in that tunnel, whose portraits it hangs alongside its own history, are not chosen randomly. They are chosen because Nike believes in the commercial and cultural force those athletes represent. And right now Nike is pointing at Alexandra Eala and saying she is that kind of athlete. The rumors circulating in the tennis community about the scale of her commercial value, the whispers about contract figures that would make her one of the most commercially significant players in the sport regardless of her current ranking, are not coming from nowhere. They are coming from the same place all of those crowd scenes and ticket surges and press conference viewer numbers are coming from. They are coming from the recognition that Eala represents something the sports business world has been looking for and has very rarely found. A player whose appeal breaks clean through the boundaries of the existing audience and pulls in millions of people who had no previous connection to the sport at all. The broader expert conversation has been making the same point in increasingly emphatic terms over the past several weeks. On the Nothing Major podcast, Sam Querrey, Steve Johnson and John Isner sat down and started talking about what they were seeing from Eala, and the conversation went somewhere none of them had quite anticipated. Johnson said what Eala is doing is bigger than what João Fonseca did on the men's side in Miami last year, when the Brazilian teenagers' matches had to be relocated because the crowds outgrew the assigned venues. Isner backed him up by pointing to the scenes in Doha and Dubai, and Querrey asked the question flat out, is she the biggest draw in women's tennis right now? The answer from his colleagues was yes, bigger than Sabalenka, bigger than Coco Gauff. And Isner made the point that cuts to the very heart of why this is happening in such an enormous and irreversible way. He said a lot of people fundamentally underestimated the Philippines as a market. They underestimated how large it is, how passionate it is, how hungry it has been for a champion of its own at the elite level of professional tennis. And now that champion has arrived, and the market is responding in precisely the way a market of that scale responds when it finally has a reason to show up. Jessica Pegula experienced this firsthand at Miami last year when she faced Eala in the semi-finals and described walking into that atmosphere as something she had not fully anticipated. Even after years of competing at the top level of the sport, she used the word insane. She was not complaining, she was marveling. She was a professional who had seen a lot of crowd atmospheres in her career, standing inside one that genuinely surprised her. And Pegula specifically pointed out that whether it was Miami, the Australian Open, or Dubai, Eala consistently draws the biggest crowd support of any player on the entire tour. Not occasionally, consistently. That is not a fluke. That is a pattern, and it is a pattern that is about to arrive in California, with the full force of the largest Filipino community in the United States behind it. After Indian Wells, Eala's North American swing continues with a return to the Miami Open later in March, the venue where she made headlines last year by reaching the semi-finals as a wildcard, a run that sparked her rapid climb up the rankings. That breakthrough now feels less like a surprise and more like a prelude. Absolute rock star Alexandra Eala, the biggest draw in women's tennis right now. Querrey, Isner and Johnson debate impact of rising Filipino. That phrase, less like a surprise and more like a prelude, is the perfect way to frame where this story currently sits. What happened in Miami last year was the preview. What is about to happen at Indian Wells and then back in Miami is the main event. The version of Alexandra Eala who walks into the Indian Wells Tennis Garden in March 2026 is categorically different from the version who walked into Miami 12 months ago with a wild card and a dream. She is seeded. She is ranked 31 in the world. She has beaten multiple Grand Slam champions on the biggest stages the sport offers. She has appeared on the cover of Vogue. She has had her portrait hung in the Nike tunnel. She has been called the biggest draw in tennis by former professionals on major podcasts, and she has behind her an army of supporters, the size and passion of which this particular tournament has simply never encountered before. The tournament organizers at Indian Wells know what is coming. The scheduling conversations are already happening. The court assignment decisions are already being made with one eye on the crowd management implications of wherever Eala is placed. The security briefings are already accounting for the level of fan energy that is going to be present whenever she walks on court. This is the operational reality of the Eala effect, and the tennis establishment is learning to navigate it in real time because there is no historical precedent that fully prepares you for it. You cannot look back through the archives and find a comparable moment where a player ranked outside the top 20 was generating this level of commercial, cultural, and logistical impact on the tournaments she entered. The closest comparisons people reach for are Serena Williams in her prime, or the early days of Rafael Nadal's rivalry with Federer, moments when tennis stopped being just a sport and became a genuine global event. Those are the comparisons being made about Alexandra Eala in 2026, and she is 20 years old. Tennis has seen popular players before, but rarely one whose popularity expands faster than their ranking. That combination of credibility and charisma is what makes her different. Wikipedia, our Wikipedia Alexandra Eala. The performances validate the attention. The attention does not exist in spite of the tennis. It exists because of the tennis. She beat IGA Swiatek. She beat Madison Keys. She beat Jasmine Paolini twice in the same season. These are not results you manufacture through social media presence or personal brand strategy. These are results earned by walking onto a court against one of the best players in the world and competing hard enough and well enough to win. And every time Eala does that, the enormous fan base watching her grows a little larger and a little louder and a little more convinced that they are witnessing the emergence of something genuinely historic. As the final countdown to March 4th ticks towards zero, the California desert is holding its breath. The Indian Wells Tennis Garden, which has hosted some of the greatest moments in the history of professional tennis over its long and storied existence, is about to host something it has never quite hosted before. Not just a tennis match, not just a seeded player making her tournament debut, a movement, a community declaring its presence on the global stage of professional sport. Thousands of voices from Los Angeles and San Francisco and San Diego and everywhere else in California where Filipino families have built their lives, all of them converging on one place at one time to create the kind of atmosphere that stays with a player forever and follows an opponent into their nightmares. The desert is about to get very loud. Alexandra Eala is coming, and the California invasion has only just begun. If your blood is pumping right now, if you feel the electricity of what is building in the desert and you know in your bones that something historic is about to happen, then smash that like button immediately and let the algorithm know that the Filipino tennis revolution has arrived on this channel. Drop your prediction in the comments right now. How far does Alex go at Indian Wells? Does she reach the quarterfinals? The semis? Does she go all the way and lift the trophy? Type Puso Eala if you believe she shocks the world in California. Subscribe and turn on your notifications right now because we are going to cover every single match, every crowd scene, every earthquake moment from Indian Wells as it happens live. The draw is dropping, the fans are coming, Alex Eala is ready, and you do not want to be the person who missed it when history walked onto those purple courts and introduced itself to the world.